5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.
Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. My name is Dee Moore, and I am a kidney warrior. This podcast is dedicated to encourage, educate, and inspire as we explore all aspects of kidney disease, related chronic illnesses, and health. If you have any questions or ideas for topics you would like me to cover, please get in contact with me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. Today's episode is part 1 of a 2-part series on kidney warrior food choices. My guest today from Norfolk, England is renal specialist dietitian Timi Omilana. Timi works with pre-dialysis and hemodialysis patients. Timi is passionate about helping people with chronic kidney disease take control of their lives through simple, practical nutrition advice. Today, Timi will share 5 kidney-friendly foods to include in your diet. Whether you have recently been diagnosed with CKD or have been a kidney warrior for some time, this episode is packed with tips to support your kidney health. Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. How are you doing today, Timi?
I'm very well, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Dee. It's my pleasure to be on this podcast today.
You're so welcome, and I'm so excited to speak with you today. I tell you what, social media gets a bad rep sometimes, but actually social media also provides connection opportunities, and this is how we met each other, which was social media. And I'm so excited to speak with you today to learn more about this topic. The topic today is food choices for kidney warriors, 5 kidney friendly, 5 to limit. And the reason why I chose this topic was January tends to be the time where people make their New Year resolutions, looking at their health. Usually some people might be looking to lose weight, get healthier. And so I thought this would be a really good time to share information that could help people with these goals. And so today will be part 1 of this topic, where we'll be looking at the 5 kidney-friendly foods. And then next time, in part 2, we'll be looking at the 5 foods to limit. So before we begin our interview, I have to start with a disclaimer, and that is the information shared in this episode is for educational purposes only. Please consult your renal team for your individual guidelines and recommendations. So, without further ado, we're starting with 5 kidney-friendly foods. So, Timi, what is the first one?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dee. You are absolutely right by saying it's January and there are a lot of New Year resolutions flying around. And it is just natural that a lot of people would want to start incorporating things into their diet or start taking certain things out of it at this time of the year. So I think it's really topical to discuss this. And I think what I want people to, or listeners to note is, you probably would not take just certain foods or more food classes, because in my profession, we usually say there is no bad food and there is no good food, but there are good diets and there are bad diets. So diet is simply the way you combine different foods just so that it nourishes your body. And also, we know we just don't eat for health sake purposes. We eat to enjoy our food. We eat because we love the food we're eating. So bearing all those things in mind, we want to enjoy what we're eating whilst the food nourishes our body in the context of a kidney disease. So the first thing I would say is protein foods. This is quite a buzzword, plant protein, all sort of things. It's quite common where a lot of people with kidney issues tend to focus a lot on that. Even in the media, you see a bit of a connection between proteins and kidney issues. Shall I eat more? Shall I eat less? Shall I do the animal proteins? And you also have an episode on plant proteins and animal proteins. I listened to that, and that was really, really interesting.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was mind opening, and I liked the way the episode actually went. Now, talking about plant proteins, basically, no, we just don't pull facts and figures from thin air. We follow the guidelines after robust research. We like to be evidence-based practitioners. So there's been evidence around the importance or how plant proteins, especially, can help elongate the lifespan of a kidney, if I can use that word, or it can help delay renal replacement therapy later on. And so, for people with chronic kidney disease at the early stages, you would also observe that people rarely have only kidney disease. It's usually a combination of chronic kidney disease and other comorbidities like diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and things like that. And so, research tells us that plant proteins are absolutely important or they are helpful. And I'll explain why we think these things are helpful. For example, we know that when you get proteins from plant, for example, your legumes, your peas, your beans, you just don't get the proteins. You also get things like fiber, which helps to, fuel you quickly. They've got low glycemic index. What that simply means is they raise your blood sugar levels slowly for people who have got diabetes. Also, they contain other components that are quite helpful in cardiovascular health. And so, you are getting multiple benefits from this sort of foods. Now, we also understand that when you consume plant proteins, it also helps to prevent something called proteinuria, which is the amount of proteins that leaks into the urine and also helps in reducing metabolic acidosis. This is simply acid in your blood because most plant foods are quite alkaline in nature. Alkaline is simply the opposite of acid, which if it then interacts with the acid in the body, it turns it neutral. It makes the blood as neutral as possible. And so following guidelines like KDIGO guidelines tells us that, leaning more to plant proteins are absolutely beneficial, irrespective of where you are on the chronic kidney disease continuum. CKD exists between stage 1 up till the last stage, stage 5. So whether you're stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3, plant proteins has got some benefits to you because it helps you to retain more of your kidney functions and delay dialysis or any replacement therapy. It helps you to delay that for longer. And also, if you are towards the end, it helps to eliminate or reduce, if I can use that word, some complications that might occur. Now, something to bear in mind is as kidney function deteriorates further and people get to dialysis, whichever form, their protein requirement tends to be higher. And it's a bit difficult to actually achieve this protein requirement with purely plant protein, depending on the body size and the weight of the patient. Typically, for the general population, we would say protein requirements about 0.8 grams per kilogram of your body weight. And that would literally be the same for anyone on, with CKD 1, 2, 3, and up until about 4. Yeah. Also, when you then go towards the later stage of chronic kidney disease and then you're on dialysis, the requirements tend to be a little bit much more than that. Let's say about 1 gram to 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight. And that's usually because some form of proteins are lost during renal replacement therapy. And so we need to replace that to make sure that we prevent any form of malnutrition, which is usually very, very prominent amongst people on renal replacement therapy or at the later stage of chronic kidney disease. So what I'm saying in essence is plant protein is absolutely good and beneficial for people irrespective of whatever stage they are on the chronic kidney disease continuum. But let us bear in mind that you've got to speak to your healthcare professionals to know exactly how much you should be having because these things are peculiar to individuals based on your blood results, on your physical activity, on your target weight, and things like that.
When you're working with an individual, how do you, I know that you said that, it's 0.8 of their body weight, 1 to 3, and then it goes up to 1 to 2 when they're on dialysis. But how do you work out how much an individual patient needs in terms of protein?
Okay, to understand how much an individual patient needs in terms of protein, we have to look holistically at the patient. So first, you look at the biochemical results. So we check, usually most protein foods also come with phosphate. And phosphate is one thing that we try to restrict as much as possible in chronic kidney disease patients at the later stage. So we check the biochemical levels of phosphate, of potassium, all the things in the blood. So examples of plant proteins would be legumes, beans, nuts, seeds. However, if a certain individual has high potassium levels, we tend to then say, oh, maybe getting your proteins from nuts and seeds are not the best option, because we know nuts and seeds also contain significant amount of potassium. Also, you look at the medications. If, let's say, the patient has got high blood pressure, and certain medications like ramipril, which we know would increase potassium levels in the body, it's all a game of balancing, really, to say, well, we look holistically at you and say, well, this sort of plant proteins are really good for you, but they contain something else which is already high in you. That might not be the case for another patient. And so we allow this other patient to have a little bit of nuts, a little bit of seed, if that's something they really enjoy and you don't want to take away all the good things they enjoy, as long as there is close monitoring of their blood results to make sure that we don't cause harm while trying to do good. What I usually say to my patients and my client is, your blood results don't lie. Even when I come to you and say, oh, are you having this? And you're telling me, no, I don't do it. I say, okay, but I've got your blood result here. It says this and this and this. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying maybe we try as much as possible to cut this and this and this down. And next time when we check the blood results again, we'll see how it goes.
So our category of foods was protein. So what is the next kidney-friendly food or category of foods?
The second category of food, I would term them as ethnic foods. Now, I choose my word carefully. And the reason for this is my interaction with a lot of patients make me realize that, especially patients from ethnic and minority ethnic groups, think that the typical food they are used to or they've been eating all of their lives are no longer suitable when they've got that diagnosis of kidney disease. And they are battling with that diagnosis itself. They're battling emotionally and all sort of things. And the only part where they think they've got control, which is your diet, I've come to take it away. And they think, oh, I can't cope with this. But I try to reassure them to say, you can still have your ethnic food. So if you're South Asian, you're Caribbean, you're African, you're Caucasian, whatever ethnicity you are, your food is still good. Now, it might require a little bit of adjustment just so that you can still enjoy it while still keeping it good for your kidneys. And also, I understand that some people or most people don't live alone. They've got partners, they've got children, they've got other people living in their homes. So it's really, really difficult to then say, because now you've got chronic kidney disease, you're going to be having 2 pots or cooking twice. No, you can still cook the same food you cook for the rest of your family and still enjoy that and still enjoy a nice meal with the rest of your family. And interestingly, Kidney Care UK has got a variety of recipes that caters to different ethnicity. I've just gone through the South Asian recipes and they're really, really lovely. There is a particular leaflet on the Kidney Care UK about eating out, where you can get ideas of pub meals that are low or that are healthy or they are kidney friendly than the ones you should probably avoid. You can get ideas as to what sort of Thai foods, Chinese foods, Indian takeaways you can have that are quite kidney friendly. So the fact that you've got kidney issues does not mean you can still eat out. Doesn't mean you can hang out with your friends or enjoy a nice meal with your friends and family. You can still do all those things. You just simply need to understand what sort of things you should look out for and the things you should minimize. And resources are out there. Like I just said, go onto the Kidney Care UK website and just search eating out or Asian or African or Caribbean, and recipes will pop up and you think, okay, I like this. Okay, this works for me. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the Kidney Care UK's Kidney Kitchen, and I will put the link for that in the description box.
One other thing I want to say about ethnic groups food is that typically when I interact with patients, especially patients from the African and Caribbean ethnic groups, it's a recurring theme where they say, oh, well, most of the foods that we eat, they're quite starchy carbohydrate. They are quite root and tubers, the potatoes, the yams. And these are high potassium foods. And I've been told not to have potassium, this, and that. Whereas the understanding of cooking methods would simply change a lot of things, where the information you've heard or you've seen online that, oh, you can have this kind of food or you can do this, or just understanding healthy swaps. It changes the game entirely for a lot of people, and then it introduces more food for them to have rather than sticking to sandwiches all the time. And then they get fatigued about, eating the same kind of food, and then it puts them off food and they start suffering from malnutrition because they're not eating quite well. And obviously they're coming back from dialysis and they're too tired to cook or things like that. But if you've got a variety of things and you have that assurance that, well, I'm going to have this because I know how to prepare it and it's not going to harm my kidneys any further, then probably it puts you, it helps you to eat even better.
What is the third category of foods?
The third category of food, I would call them grains and potatoes. Think this leads nicely from the ethnic groups. So I think coming to the UK, the staple food I think would be potatoes in all forms and shapes. Mashed potatoes, chips, potato wedges, whatever you want to do with potatoes. A lot of people eat potatoes in one form or the other most times of the week. And I think even people without kidney disease would just have it at the top of their head. The first thing a lot of people know about kidney disease is, oh, once you've got kidney disease, you can't eat bananas and you can't eat potatoes. And when I see my patients in clinic for the first time, I like to establish their knowledge, establish what they know already, and then just feed off from there. And then you hear a lot of things like, oh, yeah, you can touch this, you can touch that. And I think, where did you hear that from? Oh, well, my granny or my aunt or just mentioned to me, and I stopped eating all those things. And I say, you absolutely do not have to stop eating potatoes because you've got chronic kidney disease. You don't have to do that. You can still enjoy your potatoes. You can still do. Now, I'll tell you another one from, I think, about last year or 2 years ago, where air fryers became a thing. A lot of people have been going with the crazy idea everyone is going to have a air fryer at home. And so a lot of people started cooking or making their chips and their fries with air fryers at home. That is absolutely not a bad idea. But if you can kindly boil your potatoes first and then put it in the air fryer, you're good. Or put it in the oven if you do not have air fryer at home. You're absolutely fine. The reason we say boil is when you boil in lots of water, the potassium in these potatoes tends to leach out into the water. You then throw the water down the drain. Don't add it to your sauce or don't use it in cooking your gravy or anything. Some other people then make another mistake of steaming the potatoes. I typically would say boiling is best. If you can boil, try and soak If you can soak, well, I mean, boiling, then soak, and then steaming is the last option, I would say. If you can boil in lots and lots of water, absolutely fantastic. If you can soak in water. Now, when I say boil, people say, oh, so you're going to boil the potatoes, then it's going to be mushy already. It's going to mushy and it's not going to give you that crisp. I don't mean boil for 30 minutes. Even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or just boil, the water in the kettle and then add it to a pan and then put the potatoes in it to just soak for a bit while you're preparing other things. Absolutely fine. Then you take it out, peel, or, if it's already peeled, and then cut it into small pieces, put it in your air fryer. You're good. The ultimate thing is for you to enjoy what you're having with the rest of your family whilst reducing the harmful element or the mineral in that particular food, which in this case is the potassium. Now, that also goes for grains. So, other things like your rice, that's absolutely fine. Corn, it's absolutely fine. These ones are quite low potassium alternatives, and there's no restriction to how much you can have those. Those ones are absolutely, absolutely fantastic for you to have.
So, rice and corn, you said?
Yep.
Okay, then. I like hearing ones that, you don't have to worry about. That's really good. I must admit, I do steam my vegetables because in my mind, you're told that you don't want to lose the nutritional value of the food by boiling it too much and, killing the food, so to speak. So what about that nutritional value? Like, are you losing nutritional value from the potatoes when you're boiling it like that?
That is absolutely a good question. Usually, when you do boil potatoes or your vegetables, yes, there's that concern that you're going to lose water-soluble vitamins, which, to be honest, a lot of people get that replaced, especially when you are on dialysis. So you get a tiny tablet called Renovate, which is a multivitamin that contains all water-soluble vitamins, because we know a lot of people tend to lose most of those things because you're on dialysis. So if you're on dialysis, I would really encourage not to worry about all the vitamins and minerals you're losing, because you're getting that replaced through a tiny tablet anyways. Now, people who are not yet on dialysis and they're thinking, well, I'm not getting that tablet, I need those vitamins and minerals. Yes, I agree with you, but you can also get water-soluble vitamins, vitamin B, vitamin C, from a variety of other places. Most importantly, your fruits and vegetables. There are loads and loads and loads of fruits and vegetables that you can have. And I usually say, rather than focus on the ones you can have, why don't you look at the variety of options you can have? Yeah, if you're thinking of the vitamins you're going to lose because you've double boiled your potatoes, you can get a huge chunk of vitamin C, which are quite good for you, by eating just a piece of orange or a piece of apple. So, yeah, even though your concerns are absolutely valid, but you can get these things in other, food sources that would not increase or do any harm to your body in one way or the other.
From what you're saying, then, it's a give and take thing. So you might lose a bit of nutrition from the potatoes by double boiling them, but then you gain it back by eating that nutrition elsewhere. So that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So we've now come to the fourth food option that is kidney friendly. So what is number 4?
Yeah, so number 4, I would say breakfast options. So typically cereals. The reason I thought about this is because we all live busy lives. And, take for instance, you've got young children who you want to get ready to get to school as early as possible, or you also want to, rush out of the house, go to work or whatever thing you want to do during that particular day. And a lot of people just resort to breakfast cereals. Now, there are thousands and ones you can get in the shops, and we do not know which ones are quite good or which ones are not exactly helpful. But I like to say the rule of thought is cereals, breakfast cereals that do not contain nuts, that do not contain seeds, that do not contain dried fruits or chocolate fillings are the ones I would say we should go for. I wouldn't want to mention any brand names. Yeah, just so that, we're being fair to everyone. But because nuts, seeds, dried fruit, chocolate, they tend to be kind of foods that are high in potassium. And I think potassium phosphate has been coming up quite, frequently in this podcast. So we need to limit that as much as possible. But if the cereal you want to have doesn't have that, then absolutely go for it. Now, what goes hand in hand with breakfast cereals? Milk. Some people would say, oh, well, I don't want to have milk. I've been told not to have milk. So I just mix my cereal with water and that's it. And I think, milk is actually a good source of energy and protein for you. So these are some of the ways you can get your total amount of protein for the day. So why do you want to take that away and then just use water? Well, if you are, having cereals, breakfast cereals, 5 times a week, 4 times a week, and you're adding milk, that's a potential source of getting extra proteins into you. Now, what kind of milk would you use? That is also quite personal because it depends on your situation. For some people, if they are quite malnourished, I would usually encourage full fat milk because that would give them extra calories to boost them up to make sure they get energy and then other things that are quite good for them. And some other people might have concerns around the phosphate content of the milk. And that's where plant milk comes into play because plant milk quite low in phosphate. And so people can have as much of that. Now, another thing to bear in mind, I'm tying about 2 or 3 things together. Fluid restriction. So if fluid restriction is something you struggle with, then you've got to be careful. You've got to be mindful when you're adding milk to your breakfast cereals. But ultimately, breakfast cereals are quite okay as long as you observe the rule of third, which is try to limit breakfast cereals that have got nuts or dried fruits or chocolate fillings in them, and you go for other things. So things like shredded wheat, wheat bix, cornflakes, those ones are quite good.
There are other cereals, not being partial, but those are good examples. Just have to add that now. One thing that I wanted to add, based on my own experience again, I drink plant-based milk, is I always encourage people do check because some brands have higher phosphate levels in them than others. So obviously if phosphate is an issue for you, then make sure that you choose one that has the lower end of the phosphate. Just a tip from me. Now this brings us to our 5th and final kidney-friendly foods category. So what is number 5?
Number 5, snacks. Yeah, I know a lot of people would be shocked because a lot of people get pulled up on snacks, but I regard snacks as a double-edged sword because if weight is a concern for you, you're trying to lose weight or trying to shed some weight, and you tend to snack a lot, one of the quickest things to reduce the total calorie intake for the day would be to limit the amount of snacks you're having or the frequency of snacking. But also, if you are trying to add some weight to make sure that you are getting good nutrition, one of the quickest way to do that is to add some snacks in between meals because we understand that sometimes people do not have appetite due to a variety of reasons, due to busy schedules or physiologically because the body is going through quite a huge metabolic phase because of chronic kidney disease. They do not have the appetite or the strength to cook and things like that. And so they just tend to snack. But there are lots of snacks that are absolutely good in terms of phosphate or in terms of potassium or in terms of less salt and things like that. So ultimately, it's all about swapping the snacks that you would typically would have for the healthy versions. So healthy versions in this sense means if you typically having crisps or things like that, maybe go for corn-based snacks. So your tortillas, popcorns, and things like that to just replace crisps. Biscuits are also a good one. Now with biscuits, the loads and loads of biscuits. There's some that come with chocolate digestives. or plain digestives or biscuits with cream fillings in between. We've got to be careful with those ones, or biscuits that's got nuts in them. We've got to be careful with those ones. But if they do not have any of those things, any chocolate or cream fillings or nuts or seed, absolutely, absolutely. Having that with a cup of tea, just helps add some extra calories into you, helps you to, get all of the energy or all of the nutrient that you require to last you throughout the day. A piece of fruit can also serve as your snack in between your meals. Right. Obviously, they've got to be, fruits or vegetables that are absolutely okay for you to have in terms of potassium levels. So snacking, I do not want people to regard the word snacking as a bad thing or to see snacking in a negative light when it comes to chronic kidney disease. You can still have snacks as healthy as possible in the light of chronic kidney disease.
You don't know how happy I am to hear you say that, because let's face it, when you hear the word snacks, usually the connotation is negative. So to hear that it's okay as long as you're sensible and making healthy swaps, then I'm really happy about that and quite relieved. So yes, I'm very happy to hear that number 5 of the healthy food categories is snacks.
Absolutely. I think in between hospital appointments, multiple blood tests, maybe a kidney biopsy, or even the shock or the psychological impact of this new diagnosis, a lot of people just tend to let other things slide and then just focus on the disease itself, and then it eats them deep down. And by the time they dig themselves out of the hole, all the nutrients that they should get from food to make them healthy or to be in a healthy BMI, it's all gone. I know snacking might be helpful for people on the lower BMI scale and then we need them to get back up, while other people on the higher BMI scale are thinking, oh, I don't want to be snacking all the time because I'm trying to shed some weight, I'm trying to lose some weight. But if we do it sensibly, then I think it wouldn't be much of a problem.
Today, we discussed 5 kidney-friendly foods or food categories. The first one was protein. We looked at plant protein, ethnic foods, potatoes and grains, breakfast options, and snacks. And I was very happy to hear that snacks was also part of that. Next time on Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast, we will be discussing the 5 foods to limit. Thank you so much for joining me today, Timi, and I really look forward to interviewing you in part 2.
I am looking forward to it as well. I will definitely be here again.
Thank you for listening to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. And don't forget that you can contact me on social media using the handle Diary of a Kidney Warrior. Please do subscribe to the podcast and please do tell a friend. New episodes of this podcast are released every other Monday. Until next time, take care and choose to live.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.